Were there earthquakes a few days ago?
Oh yeah, yesterday 10 and 5 and everybody felt it except back class.
You didn't feel it at all because we were at a ground level and everybody must be at a higher level, or people felt even.
No, my friends
Yeah,
said it at
Facebook was like all over the earthquakes.
I called my husband as well, believe that actually that's not what we did. Everybody felt it.
Yeah.
Okay, we did 4.2 it was.
4.2?
हम इतने इनको कहना हमारे
So Aparna, Aarti, Madhvi, Neha, Pravan, Raman, Reema and Sudhakar. We can go out. Good. Excellent. Okay. Guys, I still haven't graded all the quizzes, all the homework. Some reason the emails just keep piling up. I have 200 emails. I always start at the bottom, and as I get to things, then I grade them. So you might have gotten your homework 8 before you've gotten your homework 7 or homework 6. So I apologize about that, but being the weekend, I'll clear out this email. Okay. So let's see, let's get started. We had started talking about software development life cycle yesterday, and we said that Waterfall is the oldest SDLC. It is a pretty systematic SDLC. It's a very systematic software development life cycle. And it has a problem though. The problem is it does not allow for requirements changes, because it's a waterfall model, hence it always falls downwards. It doesn't go back up. So yeah, even though it is very solid model, this is one of its big shortcoming. Another shortcoming is that the customer does not see the working product, until the acceptance phase, which is also a problem, right? So then the prototyping model,
So customer means
end user, I mean end user, yes, I do mean end user. Right? So if there's a major disaster or major blunder committed, it is not obvious until the end. Right? Are we out of creamer? Jaren, are we out of creamer?
No, creamer is there, sure. I normally go with the black coffee. I don't want to talk to it.
Okay. So good. So that's where the prototyping SDLC comes to rescue. In a prototyping SDLC, you have the concept phase, and then you have a circular requirements plus design plus prototype plus user focus group. So in an iteration, the end users and the customers and the BA and the technical team, they work in close association for requirements, design, prototype, and then the BA like you conducts a user focus group. And along the way, the application takes shape. The requirements become more and more clear. It may not be very obvious to you right now how this works because you haven't seen it in action, but when you do see it in action, it will be really, really simple, right? You literally see the application from being a just a simple wireframe to little more functionality, more requirements added until the customers say, yeah, this is what we thought we would be getting. So that's good. And then it goes about its usual development, acceptance, and so on, right? Then we started talking about the spiral model. We said spiral model is a risk-oriented model. What that statement means, risk-oriented model means if a project is specifically risky, especially risky, you might want to consider spiral model because spiral model was invented to deal with risky projects, right? Then we talked about a risky project, the one-look project. We said there are a lot of risks in that project. So then that also leads us to the topic of risk management. So again, spiral model and risk management are not related topics, right? But it's a good time to introduce chapter 8, risk management. So if we open up chapter 8, risk management. Risk management, chapter 8. There you go. That one.
Right before Jackson.
Chapter 8, page.
Before Jack section of the 7.
No, but within day 8, page 24. Anup, do you have the book yet? I don't think so. Let me pass it out to you for today. So, thank you. Shiny, no? Risk management handling Murphy's Law. How many people had heard of Murphy's Law before? Yeah. No, it's the same context. What Swinder, have you heard? What is Murphy's Law at its very basic level? What is it? Oh, I don't know. Doesn't happen. Yeah, good. He said whatever is supposed to happen doesn't happen the way you expect it to. I've heard this sort of statement. If something can go wrong, it will go wrong. If something can go wrong, it will go wrong. Another Murphy's Law I've heard is if there's a probability of multiple things going wrong, the one that will go wrong is the one that will cause you most damage. So in an airplane, for example, if the engine could fail, if the toilet paper could run out, if the co-pilot could have a heart attack, any number of things can happen. You have to take into account the worst case scenario, which is the engine will burn out. So there's a probability of multiple things go wrong. The one that actually will go wrong is the one that's supposed to cause you the most damage. So I think Murphy's Law came from aeronautical engineering. I might be wrong, but that's what my dad told me. He was an aeronautical engineer. That, in the world of aeronautics, you have to take the worst case into account. Same thing with project management. You got to think about all the possible things that can derail your project, right? What are the various risks that you have, and you have to handle those risks. So if something can go wrong, it will go wrong. The probability of multiple things going wrong, the one that goes wrong is the one that causes you most damage. And the last one I've heard, and I actually used to have a poster about this in my home, and I used to be very offended by it until I got the gist of it. That was the poster in my house. You've seen that? Mother Nature is a bitch, they say. Again, you know, basically, again, it's a very pessimistic view of the world, but one that is needed in aeronautics, because you can't have planes falling off the sky, right? So basically, Mother Nature will conspire against you to derail your project, right? So again, it's kind of extreme statements, but the point is, you know, that's how this book starts off, Murphy's Law, right? You've got to, as a project manager, manage risks on software projects, right? And there's an entire book on managing risk on software projects. And I keep giving the same example. My wife, when she did certificate project management course from Berkeley, it was like a 10-week course. I mean, a 30 hours course. When I say 10 weeks, most of the UC Berkeley extension courses are 3 hours a week for 10 weeks, right? So again, it's a pretty 3 hours a week though. Yeah, like just once a week, 6 to 9 p.m. Most of the classes in UC Berkeley are 6 to 9 p.m. In extension, I mean, not UC Berkeley, in the extension. Student calling, let's see why she... Hi, Anjali. There's a problem with the audio. You know, I do not even see that you have an icon. Aparna, is the audio okay for you? Madhavi, is the audio okay for you?
Yes, Alu.
Yeah. Neha, is the audio okay for you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Anjali, I see that you are online. Are you able to see my screen, but you do not have either a mic option or a phone option. So I'm not surprised that you're not able to hear me. What do you do on a daily basis? How do you hear me? So from the computer you hear me generally? And today, so maybe you might want to close your session completely and then re-log in, because I think it's just a bug. Yeah. Thank you. Today, it's actually shaking. Maybe because the connection is not good. Stop shaking? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it was just a loose connection here. Okay. So how do you do risk management? As a project manager, how do you do risk management? This is how you do risk management. And you have to memorize it. I love this photograph, Take Calculated Risks. It's a pretty cute picture of a mouse trying to get the cheese, but he knows that he'll get hit on the head by this thing, so he's wearing a helmet, but he's still going for the cheese. That's pretty cool. Take calculated risks, but you've got to take risks, right? I mean, this is not about project management alone. In life too, right? You've got to take risks. So page 27, if somebody asks you, have you done risk management? Oh yes, all the time. As a project manager, it is my duty, it is one of my job responsibilities to manage risks on my project. Good. Then the next question is, tell me about it. How do you go about doing risk management? Well, then you'll say there are 4 basic steps in risk management. You'll have to memorize this. Risk identification, risk analysis, risk response planning, and risk monitoring and control. You've got to memorize this. Right? So you identify, and if you think about, once you memorize it, or even before memorizing it, if you think through this, yeah, you identify the risks. What are the risks that can affect my project? You analyze them in greater detail. You plan a response for those risks. What will you do when to avoid these risks? And then the last one is risk monitoring and control. You have to constantly monitor your project to make sure that the risk that you had identified before is not affecting you right now, right? Because risk management is done proactively. So I've heard this statement, which is pretty nice. It made the concept clear to me. If you do not do risk management, you will be doing crisis management. And that statement made it very clear to me that if you don't do upfront risk management, you'll be fighting crisis all the time because you haven't thought about the risks upfront. So if you don't do this, you'll be doing this. So let's not even get to this. Let's not even get to the risk crisis part, right? So we should just focus on the risk. Okay. If in your risk plan, you will have to describe your risk. So you should say it in this manner. Risk event will occur causing risk result which affects either the schedule or the resources or the scope. So, of course, when your project is at risk, it is at a risk for one of these three things or two or three of these things. It can either slip, it could either run out of money or need more money, or it will not deliver what's supposed to deliver. So it's a triple constraint, right? Schedule, resources, and scope. What are the risks that you possibly could face in a project? These are the following 5 core risk types. And these are the following 5 core risk types which affect most software projects. Schedule flaws, requirements inflation, staff turnover, specification breakdown, and underperformance. If you read through these paragraphs, they'll make sense. I don't think I need to get into them, right? Schedule flaw, which means that you, the project manager, made a very aggressive schedule. And if you make a very aggressive schedule, you might pay for it towards the end where you can deliver on time. Requirements inflation, basically that's the same as scope creep. Another term for scope creep is requirements inflation. Staff turnover, that's a very easy risk to happen, right? Anybody gets a better offer, they are a very important team member, they're gone, right? Specification breakdown. Can you guys remove this, Jan? The negotiation between the users and the development team about the project requirement breaks down. So Jyoti and Kusuma, we are on chapter 8, page 27, and we are talking about risk management. Because risk management was the most obvious sort of offshoot from spiral model. Spiral model is a risk-oriented model, and since we're dealing with a risky project, we have to do risk management. And I said that these two concepts are not related. Spiral model and risk management are separate concepts, but still a good segue into risk management. And underperformance. It's very, again, common problem. Your team member is not as effective as you thought they would be. How do you deal with the risk? Well, actually, I'm sorry. Before you deal with the risk, jump to page 31. The pages in between you should not skip. You should read through them. I'm not asking you to. If I'm not asking you to cross out a page, that means I want you to read through it. When I don't want you to read through a page, I tell you to cross out. Page 31. This is called quantitative risk management. Quantitative risk management. What this means is that, sometimes people will ask you, have you done risk management? Yes. Tell me about it. You tell about risk management. There are 4 ways to, there are 4 parts to it. Identify, analyze, plan a response, monitor, and control. And then they'll say, yeah, that's good, but have you done any quantitative risk management? Because this is qualitative risk management. On page 27, it is qualitative risk management. On page 31, we have quantitative risk management. Let's see if Anjali came back. Suppose you identify a risk item. Okay, identify a risk item. Say the risk item you identify is underperformance of a team member, of team members, underperformance. So that's a risk item that you are thinking about. You would know what is the likelihood of that happening. Likelihood is a probability concept from 0 to 1. 0 means definitely won't happen, 1 means it will definitely happen, somewhere in between. And you would know, right? I mean, you alone, not alone, but maybe with the help of technical managers, know whether you've got a star team or an iffy team. And if you've got an iffy team, the likelihood of underperformance is maybe 0.5. Or an iffy team, or iffy is a term we use here in America. So-so. You know, not too confident, not too sure. A lot of vocabulary you'll pick up in the next couple of years, I'm sure.
Okay.
Which we don't never use in India because, yeah, in India we use very proper British English, no? Okay. Here we use all kinds of weird terms. Okay. Yeah, so, you know, whether you have a star team or an incompetent team, so a 0.5 is likelihood. And then what is impact? Impact means it's also on the scale of 0 to 1. Impact is also on the scale of 0 to 1. Impact 0 means it will have no impact on us. 1 means the project will be shut down. So then somewhere in between, right? So I think this particular table here gives you on page 31, how would you choose these numbers for likelihood and for impact, right? So 0.5 to 0.6 likelihood means there's a 50-50 chance that this would happen. 0.7 means it's very likely that this would happen. And 1 means it's almost 100% that it will happen. Okay? And same thing, impact. 0 impact, negligible impact versus output of the project will be useless or the project will be cancelled. So quantitative risk management means assigning likelihood and impact to each and every risk item that you have and coming up with a risk factor. There's a formula, risk factor. Risk factor is likelihood plus impact minus likelihood times impact. You must memorize this definition also. It's not much to memorize or memorize this formula. Right? So let's look at this page 32. Page 32. In your risk management plan, you will have a risk assessment and response actions table. You must memorize the various columns, just like you memorize columns for traceability matrix, you memorize columns for for test cases, you memorized sections of use cases, you must memorize the columns of a risk table. This is a risk table. Is somebody dialing up my phone number here? Okay, risk number obvious. What is the risk? This is the risk that you should define using this format. The format that I said on page 27, risk event will occur causing risk result which affects schedule, resources, or scope. So now let's look at an actual risk on page 32. There you go. Personnel assigned to project do not have necessary skills to perform work, resulting in delays. Right. So the way to define a risk event causes risk results affecting either the schedule or the scope or the resources. It could affect schedule or and resources. Yeah, definitely. So here the risk event is what? Incompetent personnel. That's the risk event. What is the risk result? They do not have the necessary skills to perform work, resulting in delay. The likelihood of this happening in this project, the help desk project, is 0.5, impact is 0.8, risk factor is 0.5 plus 0.8 minus 0.5 times 0.8, which is 0.4. 8 5s are 40, right? Or 0.0, I'm sorry, 0.04. 8 5s are 40. Huh, 0.4, I'm sorry, 0.4, right? So we left with 0.9. 0.9. So risk factor is 0.9. So likelihood 0.5 plus impact 0.8 minus 0.5 times 0.8. So 1.3 minus 0.4, 0.9. You did the BODMAS wrong, buddy. You know BODMAS? Oh, how many people know BODMAS? You all know BODMAS. Bracket of division, multiplication, addition, subtraction. What you must have done in your calculator is you did L plus I minus L times I. So your minus got attached to this I. You have to first multiply the two things and then subtract from 1.3. Okay. Okay, so now that you know that this has a pretty high risk factor, 0.9 mean it's a pretty, see that's it's a good thing to have this formula, because likelihood alone and impact alone doesn't give you how bad this risk is for you. But the risk factor formula tells you how bad this risk is for you. Right? So it's 0.9. So what should you do when you have a risk that you should worry about? There are look at page 33. When you have identified a risk, now you have to figure out what would you do about that risk. I mean, what's the point of identifying something if you don't plan a response, right? So what would you do? There are 4 things you could do. You can do preventive actions, you can do mitigating actions, you can have contingency plans, or you can transfer the risk to somebody. What should you do in response to a risk that you have identified? 4 things you could do, right, in response to a risk. So you also have to memorize this. Again, the chances of risk management coming on your interviews is 5% only. It's still a very good percent, you know. In a way, we are also doing risk management. For our interviews, we know that risk management would be asked, so we are preparing for it by memorizing it. Yeah. This is a real project example, help desk project. And you'll be doing a risk management plan for your project. So. Not really. Even the book says that every project will have these risks items, whether it's a NASA project to send a satellite to moon or selling Indian clothes online. So, I mean, it is a real world example.
We did identify risk, right, in project charter?
We identified a few risks. We just got started, barely. We only had like 3 lines of risks. Now we're going into a lot more detail about it. So, no, you go ahead. Mm-hmm. Really? How does it matter? Schedule flaws can always be there, whether you're a 7-year project manager or a 17-year. Staff? Why not? I'm sure even Google has incompetent people. And we can argue about this all afternoon long. Let me see. Real world example I don't have. Let me just be straight, right? But I know that it is not a complicated topic. It is a simple topic. So we looked at a risk management table for help desk project. I'll show you a risk management plan for my OneLook project. You'll do one for your project. I'm sure that's enough for you to get a feel for it.
Did any of our best candidates ever happen to this management?
I'm sure they're doing it all the time. Most candidates don't talk to me after they get placed. Right? There could be any risk. Anything is a risk. Security, yeah. Definitely. Let me see. Let me tap into a few people as we speak. You know, if I send the same email to multiple people at the same time, they'll think, oh, somebody else will help. I'll ask them individually. Can you send me an example of a risk management plan from your office, please? Control C, send. Right. Raj Narang. Okay, good. Okay, and then I'll tap into Madhur. Right. Madhur. Right. Let's see who replies out of all these guys. Who else should I send it to? Seema Khan. She'll do it. Okay, good. Let's see if these 6 people reply back. Okay, let's see. So, yeah, I was talking about what to do in terms of risk prevention, risk mitigate. What does the term mitigate mean? Reduce. To reduce. Reduce the impact of. Reduce the. Where have you heard that term, Naveen, mostly? During coursework? Oh, during coursework. Okay. I've heard this term a lot in movies which have a scene in the courtroom where the lawyer says, sir, I have, my client had mitigating circumstances under which she committed murder. Maybe she was being harassed by the guy. So again, yeah, she did commit murder, but she had mitigating circumstances, right? So mitigating means something that lessens the justifying, you know, yeah. So is that what exactly it says dictionary? Excellent. Okay. So, yeah, simple, right? You will either take some actions to prevent the risk. So for example, let's forget about software project management for a while. Let's think about crossing the road. If you're crossing the road, what is the risk? Get hit, get run over by a car. So what is the preventive action? I would say don't even cross. Use the overpass. That's like the most preventive, huh? What did they do in 3 Idiots? Okay, I don't remember that, even though I just saw it. Okay. When did he say Chatur?
If you come out of the gate, someone will.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Right. In the library, exactly. And then mitigating actions mean, I don't know if it fits the justifying definition that Jaren looks up. To me, mitigating means lessen the impact of, you know. So of course, look left, right, 5 times before crossing, then making a dash, right? Contingency means you must have a contingency plan. In case you do get hit, what will your contingency plan be? That's what contingency plan means. If it does happen, what are you going to do about it? So, you know, maybe have your ID card in your wallet. I know some runners who actually have a chip in their, not a chip, like a card in their shoe tied to their laces that shows who they are, what number to call, what is their blood group. You know, it's a contingency plan. Nobody ever hopes to use it, but it's a contingency plan, right? And then the risk transference means You buy insurance. That's what risk transference means. Or you penalize a third party. If you think about it, when we buy insurances for our cars or for our health or for our homes, in a way we are doing risk transference. We are transferring the risk of our car getting totaled and we having to pay for it to insurance company. Right? It's a transference of risk. The party who's going to cause you the risk. I'll show you that example. Let's go to our OneLook project, guys. It's at the last thing about your project. Last chapter in your book.
Third page from the last.
I think this OneLook project should satisfy you a bit, Rashmi, because it is almost a real-world project. Yeah, I did this in a classroom, but OneLook project is still a very real-world project where we have to interact with 10 outside partners. One of the risks that I am saying we have a risk is disagreement over API specifications will occur, causing integration problems with our product OneLook, and this will affect successful completion of the project or significantly delay the project. So I'm saying that I, as a company, OneLook, have my doubts that these players out there will keep their API the same. You know, if the API changes, I'm screwed because I have to now recode my program to match their API. Likelihood I'm saying is 0.3. You know, I'm not too worried, but it's still there. Impact is pretty high, right? Likelihood of 0.3 means what? I'll be mildly surprised if this happens. So I'm not too worried, but if it does happen, it has a significant impact to the project, right? And therefore risk factor is 0.3 plus 0.6, which is 0.9, minus 0.18, which is 0.72. How do I prevent? Obtain senior management sign off on API spec from the partner. So, you know, say we're dealing with the Bank of America, if a senior management CTO signs off on it, I think my risk won't happen because, you know, a senior level manager signed off on it, right? How do I mitigate the risk? Keep the lines of communication open between OneLook and the service provider. Have like every weekly status call with them, right? Transference, put a penalty clause in the contract with the service provider that says if after freezing API changes are made, they will incur a penalty. And yeah, sometimes companies agree to it. When TCS or Infosys take up projects with companies like Bank of America or FedEx or Charles Schwab, they agree to penalty clauses, right? That if TCS does not provide a particular level of service, TCS can be penalized $10,000 for each each delay, exactly, whatever the problem is, right? So, say again? Contract 1 year, yeah, it's a transference of, exactly, yeah, there you go. See, that's the thing about this course. I just take back everything to real life, you know, except that then we had to apply it to software project management. Second risk. One of the risks that we didn't talk about yesterday with OneLook was, you guys did tell me it is not secure. But one thing I can do about it is, if this is my OneLook company, if this is my data center, I can put a very powerful firewall around it so that the data that I have about various customers' username and passwords and stuff can be safely secured. So I have to purchase this firewall, a very expensive and sophisticated firewall, which can detect various hacking attempts going on, right? Is firewall a hardware or a software? Hardware plus software. We're not talking about the firewall that we have on Windows. That's kind of, you know, very simple. I'm talking about enterprise level firewalls. Usually firewalls come with dedicated boxes. Just like load balancers come with hardware and software. So anyways, we have to purchase a firewall for our project, right? Because of security, right? So one of the risks that I have is, look here, number 2, delays in receiving firewall hardware from Dell will cause a delay in installation and will increase the project schedule. I don't know, somehow I have a feeling that Dell is screwing up with orders, okay? Just from experience. Likelihood, 0.1. Impact pretty high. 0.7 plus 0.1 is 0.8. 0.8 minus 0.07 is 0.73. Risk factor. What is my prevention action? I can have 4 actions. Buy backup firewall from gateway. Right, that's my prevention. My mitigation, keep Dell sales department in the loop about our installation dates. So I'm lessening the chances of that happening. Lessening the impact of this event happening. And transference, put a penalty clause for Dell if the default. If you guys don't send us the firewall by such and such date, you guys will incur a $10,000 penalty. And they might agree to it. If the firewall costs $500,000, they might agree $10,000. If the firewall costs $5,000, are you out of your mind? Why will I send a penalty clause for $10,000, right? So it just depends. So that's all. You keep putting risks after risks after risks. It doesn't always have to be technology risk. Look at number 5. Low initial customer signups during the beta release will cause low revenue that will result in reduction in finances, right? Beta release. 0.1, 0.6, 0.64, prevention. Sales team works double time to sign up a lot of beta customers, right? Or you might want to increase the beta software fee from $10 to $15. But that might have an adverse impact on you again, right? People may not sign up. Contingency plan, secure additional funding. You need one more round of funding before you can go public. So there you go. That is your discussion about risk management. It's common sense, except that you have to say it in the right words. Talk about how you go about doing risk management. You do risk analysis, risk identification, risk analysis, risk response planning and control, and risk response planning and risk monitoring and control. And then how do you deal with the risk? Preventive, mitigative, contingency plans, and transference. What is the risk factor? Likelihood plus impact minus likelihood times impact. And then how do you make a risk table? You put the risk number, risk description, likelihood, impact, risk factor, and your response plans. Most probably the project manager. Good question. What phase of SDLC should the risk plan begin? I think it should begin as early as requirements, and then it keeps getting more and more filled out as time goes along. It's one of those documents that is constantly evolving. See, some documents don't evolve. Project charter gets done, it's done, it's checked in. But then their traceability matrix, risk management plan, these are things that you keep adding because you keep thinking about new risks along the way. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Starts from project charter.
Who involved in this? When we create this table, who involved?
Everybody.
Everybody, engineers.
The software engineers, the technical managers, the executive sponsor, the customer, the end user, marketing team, any stakeholder whoever has input into it.
But if the person is weak, that how different other person can say that this is weak, so how they can discuss that.
Oh, well, you don't really say, okay, this guy is weak, therefore we might fail. You just, say,
In the project,
you have to be diplomatic.
stage, you don't even know.
Exactly, the project initiation phase. But you're right. I mean, By just this, anything that you'll be doing in your real life will be so diplomatic. You have to be always kind of treading on. Seema का call आया.
Assuming that if this happens, if any of the project team members would be, then we take this action.
Seema ji, Happy New Year. Good. आपको मेरा email मिला होगा? मंडे को जरूर चलेगा. Thank you so much. आपको जुकाम है क्या? Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. मैं आपको कॉल करता हूँ. I got your message also. Thank you. Thank you. मैं ना अभी क्लास पढ़ा रहा हूँ. मैं आपको बात करने नहीं पा रहा. I know. Yeah. ठीक है. Thank you. Bye. Madhvi asked the question that there were some other columns here that I conveniently ignored, but Madhvi did not let me ignore it. Madhvi said, why are you ignoring trigger? What does it mean? You know, again, it's a trigger is like, how would you know as the project manager that this risk has occurred? How would you know? So the answer to the question, Madhvi, about trigger is, how would you know as a PM that this risk has occurred? Right? It's simple. The service provider will announce that they are changing the API. It's again common sense. That's why I didn't even go over it. Let's see. Well, let's see what the book says about trigger. Oh, there's not even a trigger over here. But trigger, I thought I saw trigger somewhere. Kahan hai?
Page number 36.
36.
I mean, in the chart.
Huh. There you go. There you go. Yeah. Risk response, a measurable trigger, something that you can measure, something that you can identify that will be tracked to determine if the risk response action needs to be taken, if these need to be taken actions. For example, vendor announces that the equipment is on back order. So your firewall thing would actually be exactly this. Your API thing would be vendor announces that your API, that the API is changing. If the risk is about an incompetent team, what will your trigger be? Yeah, delay in individual tasks. And if your tasks are getting delayed after delayed after delayed, then you have a trigger that something is wrong with my team. That's why it's okay for one task to be delayed. It's okay for two tasks to be delayed. But if there's every week we are failing behind tasks, then it means there's a problem. So that's your trigger. So again, I would request you guys to go through every page here, even though we've covered 90% of it. And you have a next homework on it, yeah? Homework 7. Create a top 5 risk list or more for your project with risk factor as well as the risk response planning options. Due tomorrow, well, Monday. Right? Thank God. I know. So yeah, there you go. Monday will be what date? Jan 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th. 11th होगा आज क्या है? 8th है आज. अच्छा, got it. 10, 11. Okay, good. इसका सुबह Question, risk number 4. Or you guys moved off? Okay, just look over here. Risk number 4 in my OneLook project. Can you guys read it? Risk number 4. Yeah. Swinder ji, you can. Private LAN setup between payment services provider and OneLook will not be accepted by the security standards group, causing delay in launch of application. Which will result in increased project schedule. I don't think this statement makes sense to you, so I thought it's a good discussion just for real life thing, because the more real life scenarios you know, the better it is. So we have OneLook as a product. Customers are signing up with OneLook. Customers are giving their credit card number, the expiration date, the CVV code. Jare, you know what CVV code is, huh?
Yeah, number.
The 3 digits or the 2 digits, or 3 digits in terms of Visa, MasterCard, 4 for American Express, right? And then your billing address, right? So the customers are signing up with this information with OneLook. OneLook has to process this credit card number through a payment gateway. There is a concept of payment gateways in the world of e-commerce. It's an e-commerce application, right? Which are some of the most popular payment gateways? PayPal is one of the biggest ones. Which ones? Google Checkout, perfect. New one, new kid on the block. Which is other big ones? Payment Tech. What's are they?
He did the.
You did the Google. Achha.
He got friends.
Okay, good. So now what this particular risk is saying that, you know, we want to set up a private LAN or private, either a real LAN or a virtual LAN, local area network. Local area network means a group of computers which are on the same network. Like these computers here in Canvas Infotech are in their own LAN. So computers which are on your own LAN, you can talk to each other securely. So if this computer wants to talk to this computer, it's a secure communication. Nobody from outside can see what's going on. Right? LAN. So in this particular case, though, it's such precious information that we are transmitting between our company and that company. We want it to be on the same LAN, right? And therefore, we may not be able to really lay out a real local area network. That would be stupid and too expensive and over thousands of miles. So there's a concept of virtual LAN, virtual local area network. Again, I don't know anything about it except there's something called virtual LAN. VMware, okay. VLANs, right. So the point then is it's for security. So we might want to, for example, have a virtual LAN set up between the two companies so the transmission of this data is secure. Okay, that's all I know. As a PM, you don't care more about it. You don't care about the specifics of how to do it. So I'm saying that.
That could be meaning of gateway. Famous gateway is what that could be. Famous gateway.
You were not there for that part of the class. Payment gateway like PayPal or any of these are companies, are services that process credit card numbers and send back an authorization code. So OneLook knows whether the customer signing up with this number has a good card number or not. So company OneLook needs to have a payment gateway. Payment gateways are everywhere. Even when you shop at Amazon or eBay or Gap.com or anything, payment gateways are there. They're the backbone of the e-commerce industry. Yeah, so just a fancy word for a payment processor, right? Terminology. EDI comes into picture when you're transmitting data between this company and that company, or XML comes into play. We'll talk about these things later. Okay. Right. Okay. So I'm saying that this private LAN setup between payment services provider, payment gateway, and OneLook will not be accepted by security standards group. So yeah, in Wells Fargo Bank and a lot of bigger companies, there is a separate group in the company called security group. Not the building security, but software security. So this is an independent group in the bank. It's not affiliated with any other group. And the job of the security group is to go and audit applications. And the security group is literally made up of PhDs in computer science and networking and algorithms and stuff like that. They could even be past hackers who've now turned a new leaf and want to lead a good life. You know, so the pretty smart people who come into, who descend onto software project teams and just kind of audit the application so that they can point out you have all these various loopholes in your project and therefore you might want to tighten it. And they are very powerful groups. I mean, most of the software groups in Wells Fargo, for example, are very scared about security group. That, you know, they'll come and not let us go live until we fix the problems. Right? So I'm saying that we have a risk. That's a risk. The security group could shut us down, and therefore we have some actions about it. Can I have a risk transference over here in this case? I can't transfer the risk. It's an internal risk. I can't transfer to a third party. I can only either prevent it or mitigate it or plan for contingency planning, right? You can't transfer the risk. So then the point is that you cannot say that these potential risk response actions must always be there. It just depends. Sometimes you'll not have any preventive. You'll only have mitigative contingency transfer. Sometimes you'll not have this. And so okay. All right, coming back to spiral model, guys. Let's come back to spiral model. Day 4. Yeah. Page 31, day 4. Page 31, day 4. Oh, yeah. So let's see. Okay, it's almost like the prototyping model. Almost like the prototyping model. Because you think about it, see, the concept is sort of here, and then the rest of the SDLC is here, and then some things are all jumbled up. Okay, the way to read the spiral model is almost like a shell, right? It's like a snail. It starts from inside and then keeps going outside, right? So what do we do in a spiral model? It's also an iterative model for sure. It's an iterative model. It's almost like the prototyping model. If you think about it, in the prototyping model, guys, what was the risk that we were trying to deal with? Was there a risk we were trying to deal with? What was the risk?
Customer changes.
Exactly, unclear requirements. The requirements were unclear upfront. That's why we went into prototyping model, right? So in fact, that was also, if you think about the risk-based model, that was taking care of this risk. So in a way, spiral model is not much different. In a risky project, you identify all the risks like this. You identify all the risks like this in a risk table. And then you start doing prototypes. You start doing prototypes and say, okay, I'm going to do a prototype to make sure that the risks that we identify can be dealt with. So do a prototype to prove to yourself that the risk can be handled. Do a prototype to prove to yourself, when I say yourself, I mean the project team. The project team has to get that, before they get into it, full-blown development and design, they do a very small prototype to make sure that the risk that they've identified can be dealt with. So for example, if the risk is API changes with the service provider, you will write a tiny program, and I say you, I mean the developers. The developers will write a tiny program to make sure that they can communicate with the API provider, with the service provider, right? If the risk is about hacking, then that somebody could hack into our servers and steal all our information, we'll do a prototype where we put a firewall around our project, around our product. If the risk is that somebody could sniff the password. You guys know what sniffing a password means, right? Getting the password. So there's a website out here, and this is you on a browser, and you are interacting with this website. Whatever information you're sending and getting back is pretty much in clear text, right? So if you're sending your username and password to this website, they can sniff it. The hackers can sniff it. They their programs called network sniffers, which can pretty much sniff the traffic of the internet. How do companies prevent it? Using what? HTTPS. When there's HTTPS protocol, then the data is not in clear text, but it is. So one of the risks that you identified in your risk plan was sniffing of passwords could happen on the network, resulting in compromise of information, resulting in pretty much the project becoming useless. You will do a prototype that uses HTTPS to prove that your team can do it. Because once you have HTTPS, then nobody can sniff your packet. Okay? So if you think about it, the spiral model is just an iterative approach to software development where all the problem areas are addressed one by one in subsequent prototypes. That's what a spiral model is. You're just working on the product and dealing with individual risk items one by one. That's what it is. Make sense? You might want to memorize this. What risk will you handle first? Will you handle the biggest risk factor or the lowest risk factor? Biggest, just common sense. Deal with it from biggest risk factor to lowest risk factor. Can the project be stopped at any time? Absolutely. If you come across a risk that you realize that your prototype is not able to convince that we have dealt with this risk sufficiently, then the project can be stopped at that time and say, this risk is really beyond control and we've got to give up the project. Hopefully it doesn't happen. Good. Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think there's much difference. The only difference, if somebody forced me to make a stand about difference between prototyping and spiral, I would say prototyping is more about unclear requirements, risk. And spiral model is about every other risk also. Security, customer adoption and stuff like that. So prototyping to me would be more for unclear requirements, and spiral model is for other sort of risks if somebody forced me to make a stand. Yeah, apparently I don't know, spiral is more time consuming than prototyping. Yeah, exactly. When I don't give you a convincing answer, then you should go to Google and say, what is the difference between prototyping model and spiral model? Let's see if the internet says anything about it.
Yeah, it heard.
There you go. Somebody else had the same question as you. Kal aajkal, wah. What is that? Is that
tomorrow.
pretty nice? Wasn't there a movie, Kal Aajkal? No, Love Aajkal is the recent one. Kal Aajkal was really, really old, where there were three Kapoors, the old, the three grandfather, father and son. It was a movie about the clash of various culture, various generations. Kal Aajkal, pretty good movie actually. Very funny movie. Eh? Huh. Wow, what the heck? Oh, okay. I was looking for prototyping, and I was looking over here, but I thought, okay. Excellent. Go back. What difference between spiral? Spiral model, it is just like rounding. In each round, there will be out. What the heck? That's the problem with blogs. Rebuild the, oh gosh, I shouldn't even read his answer. Okay, we're not. One dummy project we made, then original will be made. One dummy. Oh my god. Who's this guy? Huh? IT Toolbox? Prototyping, when the client is not clear with the requirements, one dummy project is created, presented to the client. According to the client's suggestions, the will be created. Spiral model. The spiral model is a software development process combining elements of both design and prototyping in stages in an effort to combine advantages of top-down. Okay, forget it. I think I got a revelation, how I can describe the difference. So in the spiral model, you are not really building a prototype per se. You're actually building the actual product. In each iteration, the actual product is being built. In the prototyping model, you're actually building a prototype, and it's possible that you might throw the prototype away and then start from scratch. I think that's a good way to say it. That's one of the differences. In the prototype model, you might throw away the prototype because it was just to demonstrate what we are trying to do. In a simulate. In a spiral model, we're actually working towards building the actual product in quick iterations and finally building the product. So forget about this. This one you can cross out. You like it, no? When I told you. Oh, yeah. RUP we will cover in the entire day, 24th or 25th day. We'll cover it in detail, so we'll not cover it now. And page 35 will sort of give you, like Kusuma, you were saying about spiral model seems to be more time consuming. Maybe we'll look at some, this is like a comparison chart, page 35. Comparison chart of the various SDLCs. And I want you to delete the last line because we did not do evolutionary delivery. Not necessary. They don't have RUP here, yeah. So, okay. So, if the requirements are poorly understood, you can already tell that the waterfall is a bad choice. Right? Prototyping and spiral are excellent. If your architecture is unclear to you, again, it's a risk. Waterfall is a bad model. Spiral is a great model because you can slowly and slowly understand your architecture and build in bits and pieces. Let's look at manage risks. Well, that's very obvious. Waterfall is a poor choice for managing risks. Spiral is an excellent choice. Can be constrained to a predefined schedule. Both waterfall, I guess waterfall should have said good or excellent. Prototyping is poor because I said, as yesterday I said, a client can just go on and on and on and on and never be happy with what he's seeing, right? Has low overhead, which means is expensive. Yeah, waterfall is pretty expensive. Spiral and prototyping, again, you may not completely agree with these, as long as, they sort of make sense to you. You don't have to say, no, I disagree that this is fair, this should be excellent. That's fine, make it excellent, it doesn't matter, right? Allows for mid-course corrections, which means along the way you realize that, we have gone the wrong path. Waterfall, poor choice. Prototyping, excellent choice. You don't have to exactly agree with it. Okay. Done with chapter 4. We'll do Agile completely differently again. Yes, RUP and Agile are different.
At that time, are we going to have benefits and disadvantages?
I guess so. I guess so. Yeah. Chapter 5. In the Neha, I don't think you have chapter 5, right? Who else doesn't have chapter 5 with them? Varsha doesn't have chapter 5. Is that correct? Raise your hands if you don't have chapter 5. Okay, guys. Meenakshi, were you asking me some questions yesterday that I said ask in the class, or no? Was that Rashmi? What were the questions? I did? No. Let's break them up. Okay, guys, chapter 5. Chapter 5 is all about how to estimate the effort required for a software project. And I want you to strike out all the pages after starting page 10. So page 10, page 11, page 12, page 13, page 14, page 15, page 16, page 17, page 18, page 19.
So from 1 to 17?
No, 10 to 19. नहीं होगा फिर भी.
10 to 19.
Very easy. It will be done in 40 minutes. Okay. So you have to estimate the effort required for a software project. Right? Just like when you build a house, you have to estimate the software, the effort required, the resources required, right? The money required. We all think about that when we're building a house in India. Almost everybody builds a house in India, right? Our dream house when we'll go back to our mother country and retire. So, you know, we always think, 1 crore, 2 crores, 3 crores, Hyderabad may 4 crore, Chennai may 5 crores, who knows, right? Dehradun is easy, 80 lakhs banking in a good house. So, same thing with project. When you are starting a project, then there must be an effort. You must spend some time figuring out how much will this project cost from beginning to end. How do you go about doing it? How would you do it? Anybody? Think about what all needs to be done. How will you figure out how much will it cost?
Maybe just a ballpark figure.
What resources you need? How much do these resources cost on a per hour basis? How will you know what resources will be needed? Say you build a house in India. How would you know what resources are needed? How much labor? Will you take it upon your head or will you talk to independent contractor? There must be, hopefully you will identify, unless, yeah. Well, but forget about building. Even for building, you still need to have experts around you.
Hire a contractor.
A contractor will then tell you, yeah, I'll need 50 laborers during the peak of construction. I'll need 20 laborers for this. I'll need 5 laborers for painting the house. I'll need 20 woodwork guys for doing this, you know.
The business team will talk to all the project managers.
Right. The business team perhaps will tell it to you, the project managers, hey, you go and talk to whoever you need to talk to and give us an estimate. So again, it's a project management task. It's the PM's task to figure out the effort required for a software project. Okay? And you have to mostly rely on functional team heads. When I say functional team heads, I mean the QA manager, the development manager, the database manager, the operations team manager, the legal team, you know, whatever resources need to get involved, you don't know. You know, you are just a project manager, because again, day one slide says project management means not doing the project, but ensuring the project gets done. The same thing, you have to rely on the
Other functions.
yeah. Very good sort of monologues, very nice opening statements of this chapter, right? Most IT projects are underestimated from the start. Project managers fear that a realistic estimate including all tasks and accounting for risk would result in the project not being approved to start, right? They all say, oh, let us quote a lower cost so that at least we get going, and then we can along the way pull a surprise that, oh, actually we call, you know, it's costing more, right? So the tendency is to underestimate, get started, and then be prepared to reduce project scope to meet the budget. Or you try to push the team to insane levels of work, right? Making them work 18-hour days, 16-hour days, 12-hour days. So all this can be averted if you have a realistic estimate to begin with. Common sense. Why should you estimate a project anyways? Page 2 says. Why should you estimate? Well, common sense. You need to know how much money you need to earmark for this project, how much money you need to separate from the finance team for this project. Right? You should not start with a project without having an idea what you are going to be spending. Common sense. To perform early cost-benefit analysis. How much money are we going to spend on this project? What benefit will we achieve from this project? So when Netflix decided to put the movies online, play movies instantly, that project, they must have done an early cost-benefit analysis, right? Cost-benefit analysis can be, I think, a 3-hour topic in itself, but we don't cover it because, again, the chance of this coming up in an interview is 1%. If the requirements that we get from our clients say cost-benefit analysis, at that time I request you to go into Wikipedia, and all you have to do is Google cost-benefit analysis, and I'm pretty sure Wikipedia will be the first one. Yep. Now you can just figure out what cost, and again, you realize in the end it's common sense. We do it all the time. Even you did a cost-benefit analysis to take this course, right? Some of you were very uncertain about it. Oh, $1,200, 1-year contract, classes in the morning, driving from San Jose, that's all cost, but then you have a benefit in mind, perceived benefit, job in a couple of months, and then, you recover these costs, right? Same thing with projects, cost-benefit analysis. So if you were a project manager asked to do cost-benefit analysis for Netflix play movies instantly, how will you figure out the cost? Again, you'll talk to the experts, having some idea in mind. You can't just go and say, give me the cost. You'll have to brainstorm with them. What are the costs involved in this, guys? Can you tell me? Database of movies, digitized movies. One movie is usually 8 GB in good quality, right? Multiplied by 100,000 movies, 80 terabytes of data. That's a lot. Yeah, cost of, more servers for sure. Cost of actually converting movies to digital format. Yeah. Right. Yeah, maybe I'm repeating stuff, right? More bandwidth for sure. All of a sudden, the entire infrastructure has to be upgraded, because until now, Netflix traffic was nothing. I mean, there was a lot of people on Netflix, but they were literally doing, send me this movie, charge my credit card. There's really tiny data, like literally kilobytes of data. Now we are streaming gigabytes of data. It's a complete bandwidth overhaul. Maybe they don't need T1 and T2 lines anymore. They need fiber optic lines now. I'm pretty sure this project was at least 2 years in the making, if not less, if not more, right? So the point is, you figure out the cost. It's common sense. MBA type people do this all the time. And then what is the benefit that they have perceived from it? Reduction in warehousing, right? And then you allocate benefits to it. In the end of the day, you do a cost-benefit analysis, your return on investment, ROI. But again, this is not really an economics class. That's why I'm just kind of brushing through the topic, and I don't know much about this except what I just told you. But I'm pretty sure if I go into a project and somebody told me to do an ROI, I can do it. Return on investment. The investment that we are putting into this project, the cost, when will we recover this money? Over how many years? So if we recover over 5 years, our ROI is 20%, sort of. right? So then the point is, that's why you have to do cost benefit estimate. I'll take a break after this, Jaren. Right? Why estimate? To perform early cost benefit and what if analysis to reduce project surprises, to enable scheduling of resources, so that your resources know when will they be called into play. When will so if you estimate, you know that, okay, we'll need 20 developers. So you can buy, I was going to say buy 20 developers, or you can hire 20 developers at the right time. So yeah, why estimate is common sense. Okay, so let's take a break and we will meet at 10:42.
Stop recording.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, fine. Okay, thanks.
I
Bye.
made it email for even.
Yeah. Nabina Panda? No. Sabita Khadka is she yours? Nabina. No. Okay. So we were talking about estimating a software project that you need to estimate so that the project manager, the project team knows how much money to allocate for this project. And you can always give an estimate, right? You should never tell generally who asks who for an estimate in a software project? The business team, the executive sponsor, ask the project manager for estimate. Will the end user generally ask for estimate? They don't really care. They just want to use the application. It's the team that's spending the money that wants to ask about it. Yeah, they are stakeholders. They're all stakeholders. Stakeholder is a very generic term. So yeah. So the PM should always say, sure, I'll give you an estimate. Right? They should never say, I'm sorry, I can't give you an estimate because I have no idea, or it's very unclear. You can always give an estimate. So how do you give an estimate? Let's see. I would like you guys to open in your table of contents. If you see, no, looking for it. Wow, it got deleted. This is what happens when multiple people are touching it. Yep, it got deleted. Where are we? Day 5, right? Let's see, PR. But you should still have this somewhere. Maybe not anymore. I would like you guys to see, give me a book, to see if we have this particular thing in your it. It is here. It is, let me see, where is it? After day 8, can you guys get to the end of day 8? What do you see after end of day 8? JAD sessions? After end of day 8, you see JAD sessions. After JAD sessions, what do you see? Do you see 4 sheets, 1, 2, 3, 4, sizing summary,
Yeah.
PR 531 forced settlement project. You guys see this? After your JAD session, that's what I'm going to show. And my table of contents somehow got corrupted. Oh, after day, no, I'm putting it here. I want it to be in the right place. So, software estimation worksheet. That's what it is. You can write on top of it, it's a software estimation worksheet. Oh, it is here. I'm sorry. I'm stupid. It was in your table of contents, right here, sizing document. You guys have this in your table of contents? Excellent. Okay, guys. I did. Okay, thank you. Alrighty. So yeah, so I was gonna look at this. Everybody has that? Being a PM is easier than a BA? I kind of agree with it. I've always maintained that being a PM is just lot of coordination, lot of spreadsheets, lot of emails. Being BA is little more of domain knowledge, a little bit more of requirements gathering, more understanding the customer problems and stuff like that. So I agree with that statement. I've said that many times. Okay, so say you are working for a project, and they told you, hey, I want you to do a software sizing for such and such project. Okay, what will you do? Come to the second page in this that says the Java development group on the top, a software development group. So what will you do? You will go and talk to the manager of the software development group and say, okay, there's this project coming down the pipeline. I want you to tell me how much time will it take for you to understand this project? And you'll give him a high-level idea about the project, right? So the guy will say, it will take my team about 3 days, one person 3 days to understand this, 24 hours. Good. And the guy will say, then the BA will say, how long will it take you to design the system? He'll say, it'll take me about 24 hours. How long will it take for you to code and unit test? Do coding and unit testing. It will take us 22 days, 176 hours. Again, depending upon how big this project is, right? If it's a project to send NASA shuttle to moon, it will take 5 years. If it's to digitize Netflix, it will take four months. If it is to, something simple, change the login screen, 1 day. It just depends. It just depends on what the size of the project is. But at least this outline remains the same. Mm-hmm. How long will it take for you to document your system? Right, documentation. Do developers do documentation? Yeah. What do they document? What do developers document? Their code. They document their code, right? Developers are actually notorious for not documenting their code because they just want to code. They don't want to document what they're doing. And then it's a big problem for people who come and take over the project because then they just have to look at this jumble mess of code and they have no idea what the developer was thinking. But if the developer took time to actually document his thoughts, I'm creating this data structure, I'm going to be creating an array of size, 20, then it becomes easy for somebody down the line to support the code, understand the code, to enhance the code. So as a project manager, if somebody asks you, what do you do to, what one advice will you give your developers? You can say, I always insist that my developers document the code. It slows them down, but it's good for the long run. Write comments, right? That's what it is. Yeah, who said that? Yeah, you said that. Right? Yeah, documenting and writing comments is the same thing, right? So yeah, then capacity planning, as the name indicates, sometimes your project will have an impact on the capacity of the servers. If like in the Netflix example, we said it is going to be a tremendous impact on your capacity planning. So you'll put some, we'll have to really think about it for like maybe 5 days, which is 40 hours, right? So, and then the developers have to support the QA effort, right? Mm-hmm. Developers have to support QA effort, means QA people find bugs, developers fix them, mm-hmm. right? When the product is going live, again the developers will come into play, right? So the point is that all these days get added, all these hours get added, and we're coming to 488 hours for this project. Do you think it's an estimate, like just a guesstimate, or is it a real number? It's like very solid number. It's just an estimate. The real project could take 1,000 hours. That doesn't mean that you were wrong at that time. It just means that you had perhaps very unclear information, or maybe the requirements changed along the way, right? Other aspects of the project were thrown at you that you were not aware about. So then, depending upon how unsure you are about the project's scope, you can add a variance, 20%. So then this number now becomes 20%, 1.2 times 488, which is 585 hours. So then, in a way, the Java development group is telling you, the PM, we are approximately going to take 585 hours to do this project. Yeah. Why did we only add variance and not subtract? Well, it depends. I mean, if you are, so the question that Rashmi asked is, why did we only add, not subtract? It depends upon how conservative was the team in these estimates. If the team was giving you very, very generous estimates already, then you might have a minus variance. But if the team was giving you a very conservative estimate to begin with, then what makes sense to add as opposed to take away from that estimate. So, like when I was in Wells Fargo Bank, I didn't have to think about this sheet. It just came to me. This is not something that you create from scratch. Whenever you join a big company, you'll be always just driven by templates. You're supposed to do a work, you'll be given a template, follow this template. So don't feel that, oh my God, I wouldn't know how to create this, and how did I even know that all these things are needed?
I think you just fill in numbers.
You just fill in the numbers. All these things are there, you just fill in the numbers. Do I record the JAD sessions? Record as in video record? So the question that Rashmi asked is it do I record or do you record as in general you?
As in general.
It depends. It's your style. So I think you can use it as one of your selling points or one of your uniqueness, that when I'm conducting JAD sessions, I record the JAD sessions by taking permission from everybody with the in a mic. But you have to give them the permission, right? Yeah. You have to take the permission for it. Oh, yeah, I'm glad you know that. I'll not say, one of our consultants a few days ago, she interviewed with Wells Fargo, and I think she did for me mostly. She's like, oh, look, I recorded the session so you can hear how good I was. I was like, really, you did that? Because I think her phone, I think iPhone has a recording capability, the new one. I did not know that. I was like, did you know it's against the law? She's like, no, it's not against the law. I'm like, no, it is very much against the law to record anybody without their permission. So, yeah. But anyways, yeah. I think it's a good idea. I think it's a personal style. I never recorded sessions. I never.
You can go back and listen to it and record everything, jot down every single
things they have said. Because highly possible that I don't know shorthand.
Right.
Writing down is difficult.
Right. It's a big challenge. So sometimes, yeah.
Main words and then
It's an independent. It's a
I most likely in the PowerPoint.
JAD sessions are PowerPoint discussions, whiteboard, Excel spreadsheets, anything. Right? It's just a discussion. It's a discussion about requirements, discussion about conflicts and requirements, discussion about conflicts with people. It's really a meeting. So nothing about PowerPoint per se. Who they? Who is they? You said they will present the.
Whoever conducting the class sessions, they will come up with the presentations.
Yeah, but that doesn't. Yeah, maybe they do PowerPoint, but you still have to pretty much record. I've never heard anybody record. I've never seen anybody record, but I don't think it's a crazy idea. I think it's a great idea, as long as everybody agrees to it, right? Yeah, that's why, I'm pretty sure. Let's see.
I think that the sessions may be just
I
about recording every single requirement.
I want to record JAG sessions. Let's see.
It depends on how the interviewer takes it.
If you have many meetings,
Does anyone record JAG sessions?
so you always follow
Right.
that's good. That's
I would just like,
Yeah, so you record the JAG sessions, but I think record as in record by hand. Yeah, I don't think there are a lot of precedents about it. Let me just say that. Not that it is the wrong thing to do, right? Maybe who's the recorder exactly, right? A scribe. Correct, exactly, right. I agree. A BA can act as a scribe, a BA can act as the main JAD facilitator. It just depends. Maybe there is no scribe. Somebody will say, why should I be a scribe? I don't want to be in this meeting for 3 hours. Then you become the scribe as well as the facilitator. Right, that's fine. Yeah. I don't think, if I was in a meeting and somebody said I want to record, I would not have any problem with it. Most people would not have a problem with it. So, good. Okay guys, so then now that you as a PM has gotten the effort required from the technical team, you move on to the QA team. Hey QA team, you're gonna be getting this project in about 6 months. It's about so and so. Tell me how much time will you guys take to understand the project? And you have to, again, to get this information from the QA team, you have to give them a little bit of idea about the project, right? Maybe the project charter is ready by this time. By the time you're doing sizings, maybe the charter is ready. So you can just send the charter to the QA manager. Hey, QA manager, I'll be coming to you at 11 a.m. on Friday. Make sure that you go through this project charter so you can give me some estimates.
Or just call a meeting.
Or just call a meeting. In fact, that's very common. That's a very common thing. To do estimates, a PM or a BA just calls a meeting, so he doesn't have to describe the same project to 10 people at different times. They set up a call, the various functional leads and technical leads join, they ask questions back and forth, and then they all go back and they send back these to you by email. And then you just compile all the answers and send it to the business team. Simple. Common sense, no? So QA knowledge ramp up review 5 days, develop test strategy 5 days, test documentation 5 days, develop test data and scripts 5 days, run the actual scripts 18 days, regression testing cumulative 1 day, right? Doesn't mean it's just 1 day. All these things are cumulative, right? That doesn't mean that somebody just sitting down for 5 days understanding the project. It's cumulative over time. Test coordination, test tracking, issue resolution 2 days. Overall, 352 hours, 20% variance, 422 days, 422 hours. And you can keep going to as many teams as you feel are involved. Sometimes that's your biggest challenge as a BA. You are given a project to work on and you have to figure out which teams does this project impact. impact analysis. And then you have to say, and then you might have completely, for example, missed out the customer support representative teams, because CSRs are also affected by this project. And then, that's a pretty big problem. So somebody will alert you to it. I think you guys should be talking to the CSR teams also. So you go back and add there, and then you summarize all these answers that you got in a summary document. Because generally speaking, the executive sponsor of the business team are not looking for this level of detail. They don't want to get their head all messed up. They just want to see, okay, thank you for this number. This is our low number, and this is our high number with variance. So then they can say whether they want to go through with this project or not. In case they ever come back and question you, like some people will, how did you come up with these numbers? Then you have this background research, so that they know that you just didn't pull this number out of thin air, right? They look at the due diligence you've done, right? So that's how you do software estimation. It's really simple. There's nothing to it. So that's one way you might do it, which is go and talk to the various leads. Let's talk about this money aspect. Why are we multiplying hours by 100? How did we come up with this $100? Let's talk about, in the world of software development, how do these teams charge each other money? So this is the company, right? This is Cisco. Cisco has a service contract group. What does this group do in Cisco? They sell service plans to Cisco customers, which means that when Cisco customer buys a router or a very fancy, right, exactly, right. Cisco's products are used by AT&T and Sprint and all these, and Cisco might sell maybe $1 million service plan on all of AT&T's routers in California, which are Cisco routers, for 1 year, right? So service contract group is, of course, a money-making group. It is a money-making group for Cisco, right? Every group has some expenses and they have some revenue. And the CEO over here or the CFO over here is closely monitoring all groups. Say, okay, service contract group employs 10 people or 15 people. Their annual salaries of the year for these 10 people is maybe $1.5 million. Okay, fair enough, 150,000 on an average. And this group brings in $2 million from AT&T and Sprint, just as an example. So CFO is very happy with this group. And that's what it is. It's an individual line of business. LOB, they call it. It's an individual line of business. And when cost cutting happens, this is what companies do, right? High-level management looks at each group and say, okay, let's see about this group. Maybe they want to shed all the consultants are calling about the risk plan. Let me see. Hey, Saurabh. Good, yeah. Thank you for helping Godhuli yesterday. She was telling me you were very helpful in her interview today. So, अभी नहीं 2 बजे है. कैसी है अनेट बंदी? Okay, okay. Makes sense, makes sense. Okay. अच्छा, good. अच्छा सौरभ, मैं ना क्लास पढ़ा रहा हूँ, मैं आपको दोबारा बात करूंगा इन लेंथ. आपने आई हाँ, रिस्क मैनेजमेंट प्लान. हाँ, कोई do you guys have कभी काम नहीं किया? Never seen it. Okay, आपके उसमें रिस्क मैनेजमेंट का कोई अलग से डॉक्यूमेंट नहीं है कि जो हाईली इंटीग्रेटेड कस्टमर है उसका यहाँ से डेटा आया, वहां से आया, हाउ डू यू डील विद रिस्क? नो सच थिंग्स. That would be great. I really appreciate that. आपके होगा उसमें शेयर पॉइंट या जहाँ भी आप यूज करते हो रिस्क मैनेजमेंट. ठीक है, चलो, थैंक यू एंड आई कॉल यू लेटर. बाय. So okay guys, so yeah, it's a money making group. CFO is happy and they might say, okay, in the kind, you know, when the times are tough or they want to increase their profitability, they might tell the manager of this group, can you please make do with 8 people so we can bring it down to 1.2 million, right? So that's what how cost cutting happens. Okay, so this is all good. Why am I talking about this? I'm talking about this because I still want to talk to you about this $100. Okay, now service contract group, of course, needs projects done, right? For example, service contract group perhaps uses a web application to handle customers, to create invoices, right? They must be using an application. CRM, yeah, maybe a CRM application, right? So who does these projects for them? An IT team. IT teams are generally called their cost centers. Why is it called a cost center? Because they're only spending money, they're not getting money. You know, because IT teams are generally just working on projects, and it's very difficult for companies to figure out what value they bring into the company because they're just burning money on a monthly basis, paying to their consultants and their employees. So that's where this sort of intra-company accounting comes in. When this business group asks this team to do a project for them, the IT team says, okay, we'll do this project for you. We're going to have 5 developers working for you on this project. And on a weekly basis, whether they are full-time employees or contractor, doesn't matter. They fill out a timesheet that says we worked. So, you know, this developer will say, I worked 5 hours on project 1. I worked 8 hours on project 2. I worked 20 hours, this is at the end of the week, right? About 40 hours in a week on project 3. 28 and 7 hours in meetings, company meetings. Okay, so the accounting software in the back end says, okay, project 1 belonged to this team. So the accounting team transfers $500 from this line of businesses account to the IT team account. Say the project 2 belonged to another team, another line of business. They transfer $800. So that way at the end of the month, at the end of the year, the IT team also has something to show. You know, we actually did project for them. And these guys take this as an expense. So realize that, you know, now their expense is not just 1.2, which is the salary of 8 million of 8 people. All the money that was given to other groups is also accounted for because they spend that money to do this project, to handle these customers. So then it becomes fair to the IT teams that they are also looked upon as a independent entity making money for Cisco. Even they're not really making money, but within the group they are. So that's how then the managers of this group find out if they are sufficiently staffed or not. Say the IT team's salaries for the year was $20 million. And they are doing work worth $30 million. That's pretty good. But if they're only doing work worth $10 million, they are overstaffed. They need to shed some people because they don't have enough work to charge back to various teams, right? So that's how intra-company accounting happens. And who decides this $100 per hour? It's just a figure, the market rate. The accounting team will say it's the, maybe the average salary of the team. Who knows, right? Sometimes I've seen $80, not 100. It just depends. So there you go. That's your estimation. Okay. Let's see, where are we? As you go through the project, as you go deeper and deeper into your software development life cycle, page 4, your software estimation accuracy becomes better and better. Makes sense, right? When you haven't even built a house, you can say it's going to cost me 2 crore rupees. After you bought the land for 1.5 crores, then you say, oh, no, I don't think we'll 2 crore anymore. I'll 2.5 crores. After you put the foundation and put the structure, oh, 2.5 is already gone. Oh, it will be 3.5. But as you go closer and closer to the actual house, you have better and better estimation. Same thing with software projects. As you go through the project, your software estimation becomes better and better and better, right? I'll let you guys read this, and I'm gonna get something to eat. I'm starving. So can you guys read this, please?
Okay. Now instead of being like this, it's become shape. So now my vision becomes very.
Okay. So yeah, you should not say that the project will cost $100,000. Say project will cost somewhere between 75. Leave a margin. Okay. What are the 3 ways you can estimate a software project? Page 5. Delete this. The 3 ways that you can do it is expert judgment, which is what we are talking about, right? This technique where we go to the various experts and ask them is expert judgment. Another way is historical analogy, right? That again is kind of common sense. If you've done a similar project, say you move from Netflix to Blockbuster, and Blockbuster will do the same thing, you pretty much have an idea already. You have a historical analogy in your mind that it costed us approximately this much to do 10,000 movies, and now we have 20,000, therefore it will be this much. Common sense, right? And then this is a very popular approach, bottoms-up approach. Not the one that Jaren does every weekend. That bottom-up. Right? I used to do it too. At your age, I don't do bottom-up anymore unless I'm in parties. So yeah, bottom-up approach is another approach. One of the techniques of bottom approach is called WBS, work breakdown structure. Work breakdown structure. So WBS is an example of a bottom-up technique. Okay. We'll talk about WBS in chapter 6. Okay. And page 7 is interesting page. If you were ever wondering about how long a project lasts in various phases of the SDLC, then this gives you an idea about it. If a project takes 100 days approximately, 12 days are spent in requirements. About 23 days are spent in design. 30 days are spent in coding. 35 days are spent in QA. So QA is pretty important if you think about it. You know, most people, this is ideal. What happens in real life? Sometimes coding takes so long, but the go live date cannot change, and therefore what suffers? QA suffers. It's very common because QA is at the end of the SDLC. Requirements took longer, design took longer, developers were out partying, they went to India, and finally we have 5 days left for QA. We still had to go live on 101st day, right? So again, this is right. Yeah, it's kind of a very, they almost the same sort of measurements, but little different about, one is schedule, one is effort. So I don't even like to talk about this because whatever. So the moment I say Russia is like, okay, definitely, I'm not reading this at all. I know, exactly. Why to, okay. Bottom-up technique, page 9. Distribution of project effort, yeah. It's like break up a high-level task into multiple subtasks and then figure out the effort required for subtasks is what bottom-up is. So bottom-up is divide and conquer, right? You divide your high-level project into mini projects, into mini tasks, and then say, okay, how much will it take for me or for the team to do this task, and then you add up all these durations and gives you the duration of the high-level task. Simple.
So what about this distribution?
Yeah, I didn't even read about it because what it's, forget it. But read it. Yeah, as I said on the first day, I don't go slide by slide because some of these things are just either not important or they're just so obvious and they're just meant to be read and not meant to be talked about. And then I would like you to, they're just describing, forget about this function points things. What is a large project in their mind? More than $2.6 million, more than 2.6 million lines of code is a large project. A small project means less than 20,000 lines of code. yeah, who cares? These are just, okay, let's move to the next chapter, day 6. Okay, so as I said, WBS is an example of bottom up technique. Okay, this is what it means, work breakdown structure. You divide a project into multiple layers. So this is like this. And then each of these tasks then have more subtasks. This is WBS. So this is a level 1 task, which is the high level project we have in mind. This is the level 2 task. They're called the major milestones, major deliverables. Let me call it major deliverables. And then this is level 3, which are, no, it's a work, it looks like a site map, it's a work breakdown structure. It's a WBS of the project. Yeah, level 3 is the actual tasks assigned to individuals. Okay, so let's do a WBS for Jaren. I'm really sorry, for Jaren's wedding. Yeah, it's upcoming, right? In the next 1 year, done. 1 year? Why 1 year? Much sooner, huh? Wow, you are ready. Work breakdown structure for Jaren's wedding. Job lag gayi, ho gaya, ho. Did you start your work yesterday?
Yeah, I'll talk to you.
Talk to you. Okay, good. So what is my level 1 task? Get Jaren hooked. You know, I can name it any other way too. Okay. All right. What are the major deliverables for this? Well, actually, not just hook. I am talking about the actual wedding. Get Jaren married. Talking about the actual wedding ceremony.
So you agree?
Well, let's see. Girl.
Shaadi.com.
Okay. Okay. What other things? Okay.
Girl कैसी girl चाहिए?
How do we find a girl?
Shaadi.com.
Put an ad in Shaadi.com. Step by step.
Social networking. लोगों को पूछो कि आपके लड़की
Right.
Reference check.
Ooh, reference check. Very important.
social networking.
Definitely, reference check is necessary. Just like your reference check will fail badly. Reference check. Okay, and then reference check and evaluate options or perspectives.
Main criteria.
Yeah. Shortlist,
Photos.
date, and decide. Yeah. Then again, we can spend a whole day on this, but we'll try to move fast. So after the girl has been done, how about the ceremony? The actual ceremony.
Engagement. Or ring ceremony.
Okay. Okay. Right. This
Ring ceremony में अंदर आया.
कहीं भी आ सकता है. Okay, so that's good. I'm glad we always, whenever I take this example, we always have different ways of doing it. As long as these tasks eventually are there on the paper, it doesn't matter where they fall here or here or here, right? The point is, we all think differently. We're all different humans, and we'll all will think about it from a different perspective. Ceremony, decide date, evaluate locations. When you'll have the ceremony. Yeah.
Invitation.
Publish or
Print.
print invitations. And that can also be broken down into,
Or send evites.
yeah, exactly. Invitations, when we'll call evite over there. Send cards or evites. Then compile attendees. Right? Who will be attending your thing? Food. Should I make it as a separate level 2 task? Just why not? Just, doesn't matter. It could be there. Yeah, let's talk about this. How do you make level 1, level 2 tasks? Let's go to WBS and let's read about it. On page 2. Page 2 of day 6 says that, you can break down your high level task into multiple level 2 tasks. What are multiple level 2 tasks? They're major accomplishments, major deliverables that we have to achieve this thing. And then each task will have further level 3 tasks. Okay. It tells you on page 2, how do you decide level 1, level 2, level 3. Level 1 is the top level, the project, right? Level 2 is the reporting level, made up of major work phases, major product components, major accomplishments, right? Level 3 is the actual task level, the smallest unit of work that will be reported to management. A WBS can have as many levels as needed to accurately represent the work. Usually 3 to 4 levels is sufficient. So like I and Rachna were saying, the invitations part could be further broken down into another level. For example, decide, design, decide, printing press. Right? Then I can decide the paper, decide whatever, right? So yeah, you can keep going down and down and down and down until you realize this is the most basic task that I need to do, right? So don't feel constrained that you have to stop at 3. You can go down, right? But for this particular thing, so that doesn't spoil my, I'll just remove this. Okay, got it. And then let's see, catering. I think catering should be its own level 2 task, right? And then I think decoration should be its own task. I think rehearsal is big enough for it to be its own task. Honeymoon. Honeymoon preparations, right?
Return gift.
Well, return gifts is hopefully not his headache, na? Oh, no, return gifts. Really? Even in weddings?
Yeah, in India, wedding देते हैं, थोड़ा coconut देते हैं, ये.
Oh, yeah. You have to give shawls and kapda and stuff. इसमें नहीं है. You want the honeymoon. You want all the getting part, but not the giving part, huh?
I think girls are very honeymoon डाल देते हैं.
Oh, that's a good thought. That you guys said that before even the girl is decided, let's do the honeymoon. But so realize that WBS does not have any chronological order. So let's make that very clear in our minds. WBS does not have any chronological order, which means that just because we are talking about this on the left and this on the right, it doesn't mean that this comes later. You know, we're just kind of putting our thoughts on paper and rehearse, you know, yeah. So not important. So it's okay for honeymoon to be here, not to be there. Decoration may same thing, right? Decide theme. You know, a lot of people decide that they'll have a tropical theme, they'll have a winter theme, whatever, right? Evaluate suppliers for the decoration. You know, yeah, budget. And budget can pretty much be there in every sort of. So maybe budget can be moved here, is what you're saying, Savinder? Okay, I agree. Maybe budget can become number 2 task because that's our high-level task. You know, how much money are we going to spend on this wedding?
Even catering you should send in.
Right, exactly. Catering will have its own sort of thing, right? Food tasting and menu and. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I was wondering. Okay, yeah, there you go. Exactly. Let me look at show you WBS of OneLook project. If you can please jump to the OneLook project. Look at page 19. So I have a OneLook project. My OneLook project has major deliverables or accomplishments. You know, our requirements have to be decided on. Infrastructure has to be created. Infrastructure as in the actual developers will be using software, will be needing machines, we'll have some databases, we'll have some load balancers, we'll have to develop registration module which will help customers register with us. Then we'll have the actual portal login module where customers will log in. We eventually have to certify and deploy OneLook. Right? So the point is, when you do OneLook project or your project, you would do it in a different manner. I'll do it in a different manner, as long as eventually all our tasks are there, roughly. Right? You might frame them differently, but they might mean the same thing to you as what it means to me. So I have these various subtasks. Market opportunity. Like go ahead.
I think this looks like SDLC.
It does.
We have like different SDLC pages as the secondary or the second level.
Absolutely. In fact, if you see page 6 of day 6, it says that you can even create your WBS based on the SDLC. That's the kind of approach I took.
I think the other approach you can take is like major modules.
Major modules.
And then break those modules. Say for if you want to take time to, you might want to take the consumer ranking level. I mean, consumer ranking is still a big
huge, yeah. Bill pay.
That could be a one project in itself, and you can have multiple modules.
I agree, Rashmi. I agree that the WBS that you create can be done either, you know, phase-wise. In the first phase, we'll do this. In the second phase, we'll do that. Or it can be done using SDLC.
But I think if you go by SDLC, it would be a waterfall model rather than other models, right?
Even if, okay, so the question that Rashmi asked was if you go with the SDLC model, most probably you're following the waterfall model. But I think most of the other models can also be somehow fitted into the waterfall model. There might be some iterations along the way, But whether it's spiral or prototyping, you can somehow force your model into waterfall, right? In a way. So if you look at page 7 of day 6, the quick answer help desk project that we started with in day 2 has this sort of a WBS, right? Somebody has to create a project charter. Somebody has to review and approve charter, right? We have to create a base plan, approve the base plan, conduct customer calls survey, conduct JAD session, create requirements for help desk, submit RFPs, review proposals, select vendor. In the design, you design the customer database. You design tailoring for the expert system. So for those of you who joined the class late, there is a project in chapter 2 called the help desk project, where a company is trying to set up a complete help desk to help their customers get problems solved about computers and stuff like that. And so that's what this is about. It's a help desk project, right? You have to install the server, tailor expert system. Is there any way you can do this alone? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. There's just no way you can do this alone. It is definitely a teamwork. It's a team approach for creating WBS. Like everything else, there's nothing that you do which is alone. That's a good part about being a PM or a BA. In the second,
Yeah,
second,
yeah, there, 2.4. So that does that come there, or does it come somewhere like in the initial stage before even you write the charter?
Yeah, it's fine. I don't mind if you change this, this, and this over here. In real life, it doesn't, you know, when do you choose a vendor, when do you send RFPs, it depends. Whether you do it before the project charter, during the project charter, or after the project charter. It just depends upon the situation.
Because here you are asking for the estimates, right? Like how much are you going to charge for this? So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it can come
It can
after
come
the
anytime.
charter.
Yeah, it can come anytime. You know, that's the thing. In software projects, there's not really a very straight line that we must do this before that. Sometimes things are happening in parallel. And by the way, as I said, there's no chronology here anyways. So it does not really mean that this is being done after. It's very possible that this is done before project charter. Where does chronology come? In the network diagram. The WBS that we have will be converted to a network diagram, and the network diagram will then have the chronology of these tasks at that time. Yeah. So let's go back here to the OneLook project. Find market opportunity. I know you guys are chatting using the, it's very obvious. I've done it all the time myself. Find market opportunity, create project charter, conduct user interviews, create business requirements, create functional requirements, initial requirements ready.
I was just asking the going to Rima's place.
Rima's place after this. Well, we should ask Rima. Rima, these guys are ready to come to your place. Are you ready to greet them in your pajamas, or are you ready? Oh, she can't talk to me because she doesn't have a mic. Yeah. She must be typing in the 8. Very funny. Yeah. Are you, well, that doesn't answer the question though. Because these guys might just, you don't know the address, right?
Let's see.
Or could we? Anyway, okay. So all these various tasks are level 3 tasks. I do not even want to go through these because I'm sure you don't care about this. You know, it's some stupid project I did. But the point is, should you be doing a WBS? Let's see. Let's look at your master homework list. So you do not have a WBS, but you have a project plan. Microsoft project plan. Create a Microsoft project plan. Okay. Let me tell you where I'm going with this. We talked about WBS. What is WBS? It is nothing but a breakup of a high level project into level 2 and level 3 tasks. What is the purpose of doing this? To be able to assign level 3 tasks to teammates, right? The purpose of WBS is to break up a high-level project into level 2 and level 3 tasks. Why do we do this? To be able to assign level 3 tasks to teammates. Which kind of makes sense, right? I mean, the job of finding the right girl, put up an ad in Shaadi.com can be done, for example, by me for Jaren. Reference checks can be done by Rachna. Evaluate options can be done by Jaren himself. And dating can definitely only be done by Jaren. Right? And then decide may be done by his parents. So there you go. You've taken each level 3 task and you've assigned it to people. Because that's what project is. It's a bunch of little tasks that people are doing that rolls up to a bigger.
So then we as a PM assign.
Oh, good question. Do you as a PM assign? Yeah, I think so. Except that again, you are getting help from the technical manager. So if the task is to create a wireframe, then you may not know who in this team of 20 developers does wireframe. So the technical manager tells you, give it to Joe Blow. Then if the task is create test cases, right? Test cases somewhere here. Again, the QA manager will perhaps allocate resources for you, right? So, but again, it's it's a team effort. It's a team effort. So as I said, WBS does not have any chronology in it. WBS gets converted to a network diagram, which we'll cover next. Yeah, and the network diagram then gets converted to a Microsoft project plan. This is the end goal of doing all this. Just like the end goal of an ER diagram was, or ER modeling was, the database design, the end goal of doing all this is creating a Microsoft project plan. And don't be surprised if you enter a project and you see the project manager directly doing this and skipping all these steps. He already sort of understands the project and he already is doing it in his head. He may not be doing it on paper.
Maybe he had a rough sketch.
Maybe he had a rough sketch. Or maybe all this is being done right here in the project plan. We'll see how that is done.
What is the NPL?
Network diagram. It's a network diagram. It's the next chapter. Right. That's the end of day 6 actually. Yeah, it's pretty much the whole chapter is about WBS and we pretty much talked about it. Breakup of a high level project into level 2, level 3 tasks. So how do you convert a WBS to a network diagram? The team brainstorms and decides the relative positioning or relative timing or relative chronology of the various tasks in WBS. That's what network diagram is. The team brainstorms and decides the relative positioning, timing, chronology of the various tasks in WBS. So you don't have the project plan due until later. The only thing you have due on Monday is the homework 7. Yeah? I'll take 10 minutes to take questions, group questions. What was yesterday's question, Rashmi?
Like the company is implementing like the technology we are talking about. Are the companies implementing?
Good question. I'll repeat the question.